Yo, yo, yo.
Period. But this is applicable science. My name is Amanda Harvey. I am a junior cellular molecular biology major from the great Woolwich, New Jersey.
Anyways, my name is Chauncey Upshur. I am a graduating senior computer engineering major, computer science minor from Laurel, Maryland, the real DMV.
And last but not least, it's your boy, Christopher Small, graduating senior electrical engineering major from Jacksonville, Florida. And we got a special guest for you coming right back at you.
It's back to back.
Oh, back-to-back episodes. If you didn't know, now you know.
know.
Check out our sports and technology episode with Zion Walker. And today in the building, well, not in the building, but you know what I mean. You know what the vibes is. We got our guy Ikenna.
That's fine.
Yeah, I didn't want to butcher your name. My brother. How you feeling?
I'm good, bro. How are y'all?
You know,
Great.
we doing fine.
You already know the vibes.
We doing fine on this day. You know.
So I can give a little background to the viewers for people who don't know who you are.
All right, so for people who don't know who I am, my name is Ikenna, or my Igbo name is Ikenna from Nigeria, but born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. You know, I'm a senior computer engineering major, full stack developer, freelancer, and I dabble in finance and venture capital. And I don't know, I just love tinkering, building products, looking at like financial news, looking at the economy, seeing how things are doing in the world. And I love educating people on how to like essentially free themselves from just ignorance, essentially, just knowing how the world works and how to take advantage of it so you can make your life better and the life of your community better.
I got you. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, Ikenna is the up-and-coming entrepreneur. Be on the lookout for him in the next decade. He's going to be making major moves.
Major moves.
But, so, I just have one quick question. You said venture capital?
Yeah, venture capital.
Venture capital.
Yeah, like venture.
Okay.
Like,
I heard like vegetable. And I was like, what is that?
For the viewers that don't know what venture capital is, can you give them like a brief rundown of what VC is?
Okay, so basically venture capital, just look at any major product that you have. Like look at your phone, your iPhone, look at your shoes, look at whatever product you buy, right? Essentially, when those companies started, they needed some kind of like funding. They needed money to like grow their brand, their business. So usually what a lot of people do is they'll have an idea for a product or a business, and they go to what's called a venture capitalist or an angel investor. And those people will give them money based on criteria. If they resonate with the founder of the company, they just see the success of the business plan, and they'll give them like money in rounds to be able to grow their business. So like the first round would be like a seed round or like a pre-seed round where they'll just give you like your starting capital of like $500,000 to like invest in other like workers, engineers, business salespeople. And then you will, go ahead with your business plan, grow that. And then when you hit certain benchmarks, then you come back for more rounds of funding. And then essentially you either plan to go to IPO, which is initial public offering, where you'll just be able to be traded publicly on the stock market, or you'll be acquired by some larger company. And that's literally how the whole venture capital cycle works. So
a venture capitalist in similar terms is just a very glamorized version of a startup investor.
That's literally what it is. Like venture capitalists are just people with absurd amounts of money willing to give it to anybody that has a vision for what kind of business they're trying to pursue.
And then the venture capitalists like own a percentage or some equity into that startup.
Well, yeah, it works like venture capitalists, they're usually investing other people's money. So like essentially like they'll have like banks as clients, or they'll have other people like other investors or other like rich, like wealthy people as clients, and they'll pool that money together and they'll use that as a fund. So like they'll probably get a fund of like $50 million or $100 million from a source of investors, and they'll take that fund money and go and find companies to go invest it into to get a return of usually around 20% IRR, which is like initial rate of return. And yeah, once they hit those benchmarks, they receive their cut, the investors receive their cut, and they just restart the process.
Gotcha. I got you.
So in a sense, it's kind of like Shark Tank.
Yeah, it's exactly like Shark Tank. It
Okay.
is Shark Tank. That's what Shark Tank does.
Got it.
Shout out to Shark Tank.
Shark Tank is a fun show. It's an interesting show.
Yeah, I didn't pick up watching Shark Tank until not this summer, the previous summer, summer of 19. I was interning with one of the aerospace companies in Florida, and my roommate was interning with the same company, but he was an aerospace engineer / MBA student, and all he did was watch NBC. He used to watch NBC a lot, and they just talked about the stock market, different business accusations. Business acquisitions, all that stuff. And then once he started watching Shark Tank, and I seen Mark Cuban on there, Damon John on there. I forget the other ones, but those are primarily the two ones I know. I just got hooked and like listening to people pitches, learning what equity means when they.
Do you know who is Mr. Wonderful?
Oh, Mr. Wonderful, yeah. I forgot his real name though.
And then QVC.
QVC.
That's a lady. Oh, yeah. By the way, if you're talking about Mr. Wonderful, I think his name is Kevin.
Yeah.
O'Leary.
Kevin O'Leary.
Yeah.
Kevin O'Leary.
That dude. They be getting that Kevin O'Leary though. I ain't gonna hold you.
Oh, facts.
Cause he be willing to take the risk on some people's products without a positive profit, or like they're trying to do an actual Shark Tank. He's going to be the shark and like take over their business or something.
Okay, so is Kevin O'Leary, Mark Cuban, Barbara Corcoran?
Yeah.
Damon John, Robert, and they have special guests sometimes. They had Charles Barkley on one of the Shark Tank videos.
Charles Barkley?
Yeah, Charles Barkley.
Well, Charles trying to get some. He trying to be a star. He trying to be an investor. I mean, I'm not.
I mean, it was only for like one episode, but it was just a feature.
Yeah. They really got me into like thinking about how to pitch a business idea.
That show will really teach you, like, if you ever go into like a like you try and make something happen, you at least have to cover the bases down, and they kind of not go over it, but basically tell like what they really want to know. Because at the end of the day, there are two types of investors. There's a one investor who is committed to the goal, and there's another investor who's just worried about the money. And usually you may get a couple people who cares about both, but all people care about the money.
Of course.
Cash rules everything around me.
Cream get the money. Dollar bill.
But so this episode, we are talking about big bank take little bank, if you think about it that way. But so we were talking about the Federal Reserve, and this topic was not recently inspired, but during quarantine, I was told about this documentary called Federal Reserve, Not Federal, No Reserve. It is on Amazon Prime. It is about a 4-hour documentary talking about the Federal Reserve and the history of it, and how it came into the United States and how it came into other countries, and how it was just really eye-opening to me, because you think of the Federal Reserve in America, you think America runs it, America owns it, but it's actually privately owned, and a lot of other things. And a lot of this stuff was based off theory. I guess a lot of this stuff wasn't for like verbatim. It's like, I guess based off your perceptions, but it was pretty much talking about how big money investors or people who have a lot of money within the world, a lot of these people are unnamed or anonymous because they don't want to be known throughout society, but how these people are pretty much running countries in the world just because they have so much money. So I thought it was interesting, and I posed the idea for them for this part car conversation, and they all watched the documentary. And today we're going to talk about our perceptions and what we just think about the Federal Reserve in general. So what do you
By
guys
the way, the link will be on the display. I mean, below. That's what Chris was referring to.
Yeah, it'll be
Yes.
in the description below. Off rip. That is the longest documentary I have ever watched in my entire life. That is like 3 hours. Okay, compared to like The Godfather, where it's 3 hours, it don't feel like 3 hours. But this documentary felt more than 3 hours, and I didn't even watch the last half of the hour. Like I didn't watch the fourth hour. That just shows you how long this documentary is. But it does take you back from the British banking system all the way up to the recession of 2008, how that got started, how that came to be, and everything in between with American politics and British and American Revolution and splitting of the two. So, I mean, if you like money, if you like history, I definitely recommend this documentary to you, and pop your popcorn and get ready for a history lesson.
Yes, because I remember when I first learned about it, because I guess I'm not the most informed on history, but just to see how these, I guess, big money makers kind of forced the Federal Reserve to be in America, and how much control they had over politics, wars, everything. So it was really eye-opening just how much influence they have, even on the stock market, how much they cause influx.
Yeah.
Like I remember I forget what exact war it was, but they caused a war because at one point America got rid of their central banking system, and they wanted a central banking system in America, so they caused a war, corrupted their whole dollar, and then forced a banking system into America as its better option.
Yeah. I think that was the second bank of North America or something like that.
Yeah.
Another fact check that one.
Ikenna, how you feel about the Federal Reserve?
I mean, my personality off the rip is very indifferent, right? So I see things for how they are, and I look at everything objectively, and I look at details as to what affects what. And so, like, when I look at the Federal Reserve, like, I actually did a little bit of research on the Federal Reserve, like, a while back. And so my general understanding of it is that we have a country, right? And we have people in this country and people who exchange money back and forth from each other. And so in order to keep that stable, because if you have a lot of people and that number of people is growing over time, that means the number of people who exchange money is growing over time. That means the amount of money in that country is growing over time, and that causes inflation. And inflation is not good because it causes the value of your dollar to decrease, and inversely causes the value of other people's dollars in other countries to increase, which makes you less valuable. So in order to come and combat that, we created the Federal Reserve to be able to essentially control the level of inflation and GDP increase or decrease within our currency and our country. And so basically, the role of the Federal Reserve is to literally increase or decrease interest rates to encourage or discourage like commercial or enterprise spending. And basically what it does is that's literally why we have like recessions or we have like periods of inflation or whatnot, because the Federal Reserve is either increasing or decreasing the inflation rate. And so literally that's what happened during the housing market crashes of 2008 is that, so like basically I think 2007 around that time, there's like a lot of people looking to get houses, and there was a lot of people literally like going out trying to get loans. And so basically what the Federal Reserve did was they lowered interest rates to be able to foster economic growth. And so when they lowered interest rates, they made it like real easy to get a loan, right? So like everybody was like, okay, I can just go buy a house for $100,000 and not pay like $10,000 down payment, and I can just pay down this loan in like 30 years or whatnot. Okay, cool. I'll just go take out a loan. And then since interest rates are so low, it was literally encouraging people to go take out these loans, and people didn't essentially have the capital, the means to go and pay it back in the long term. They were just thinking about the now, how I can just go take out a loan and buy a house and have somewhere to live. And so because interest rates are so low, and so that started happening a lot, And a lot of people were taking all these loans. A lot of people were buying houses that they really couldn't afford and moving into bigger areas. And we did see a lot of economic growth. But the thing is, like, when you have economic growth, it has to be stable, or it's gonna be unstable, honestly. So like when a lot of people started doing that, it literally inflated the value of the dollar, right? It inflated the housing market, and then eventually, what happens with loans? Like if you don't have money to pay your loans, then you're gonna default on the loan, and when you default on the loan, somebody has to pay it. And so what happened at the height of 2008, like people started defaulting on these loans because they never had the money or the intention of paying back their loans. So like what happened, we had a crash because a whole bunch of loans were being defaulted. Housing prices started like tanking, and you see, and the whole point of the whole reason behind it is because the interest rates of those loans were so low, like enabling people to go out and buy these houses. So like the Federal Reserve, my opinion about the Federal Reserve, like it has its purpose, but then at the end of the day, people in the world and people that are in control, they literally are. They're just people like you and me. So like people make mistakes and whatnot. So like there are definitely pros and cons to the Federal Reserve, in my opinion, and that a lot of the economic depressions that you see happening to us in the United States are because of the Federal Reserve, or because of people's inability to like control their spending habits. There's a whole bunch of factors that play into it. But the Federal Reserve, like I said, I'm very indifferent. So like, it does serve a purpose in like fostering economic growth, but it also does cause depression. But then again, you can say that's normal because you can't have like you need to have your ups and your downs. But at the end of the day, over time, over the long run, we have stable economic growth. So Federal Reserve is all right.
So I have a question. So yes, the Federal Reserve has its pros and cons, but do you think there's a better solution than the Federal Reserve in regards to a banking system?
No, I don't. Because the Federal Reserve essentially, so like you said, it's privately owned, but they do have government lobbyists. Like they're like the whole point of the Federal Reserve is to implement monetary policy, right? So like, what are you legally allowed to do without your money? So like the government and the Federal Reserve are like one and the same. They go hand in hand. So we need the Federal Reserve to be able to like govern ourselves and how we like on a countrywide scale. How do we spend the money efficiently? How do we control the growth of it? And how do we maintain steady growth? But on the other hand, I mean, it's still subject to human nature, right, and human error. So we're gonna see these depressions. We're gonna see these bad times in the economy. But at the end of the day, if you look at everything in aggregate, you're going to see like consistent growth over the years since the Federal Reserve's establishment in 1913. So, yeah, it's there for a reason.
I have one more question. So, based off the documentary, it talks about how the Federal Reserve has so much power in society. So do you think they have too much society? Because obviously if you control the money, you control a lot. So they control the money within the United States. So do you think they have too much power?
I mean, okay, so like when you say power, like so like for me, influence. Power is very indifferent, right? Like power is neither good nor bad, right? It just is. It's just power. Whoever has it, like you're just more able to do more things. And for the Federal Reserve, like, yeah, they have a lot of power, but mind you, they only have power on monetary policy. Like they can only lower or increase interest rates. Like that's their job. That's within their power structure. So, but with that, it does affect a lot of things, like how, like the value of our dollar in general, like that's very crucial. But like having too much power, I wouldn't say they have too much power. They have a lot of power, but you gotta understand they're operating on a countrywide scale. So like that they need to have that kind of power to be able to operate efficiently.
Or I guess when I say power, I guess they have a lot of influence and they can influence a lot of even presidential candidates.
Yeah.
That's definitely one of the things that the documentary did, like keep pressing upon or bringing up, that the people that were private investors into the Federal Reserve were heavily influencing governmental policies, whether it be with the Constitution, policies with the different departments within the government, lobbying for better presidential candidates than other ones because they know somebody who is one of
And
the
it's funny you say that, Chris. It's
who's
actually
one
funny.
of who's one of the people of the Federal Reserve who's influencing that.
I was literally just gonna say like that's actually a real thing, and you don't only see it within the Federal Reserve. You see it in a lot of like Fortune 500 companies, but that's also because of they're all subject to human nature, right? It's the Federal Reserve or any company is built around human beings, right? Like human beings created that structure, and for human beings, it's natural that you want something to be in benefit to you, like you want something to go your way. So like for people who lobby for certain for acts to be passed, certain bills to be passed, they're literally wanting the benefit to be in their favor, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because that's literally human nature. Like everybody, and that's why I'm saying it's subject to human error because, like I didn't mention it, but people are gonna do what people do, right? Whether you do it with good intentions or bad intentions, you still want yourself to be better off. And if you have the ability to do so, you're gonna exercise that power most likely. So I don't blame them for doing it because like who's to say I wouldn't do the same thing in their position? But like at the end of the day, they do have a lot of influence and effect on a whole bunch of moving parts. So you don't know what is gonna affect what. A lot of people just look into the now and seeing how can I better myself now, not necessarily looking at okay, how does this affect other moving parts and what is the actual long-term look at what I'm trying to do.
But that brings about everything you said and the previous things that you said when you were talking earlier. Just brings us back to that conversation what you had with me and Chauncey last week about like government policies, nominations, nominees, how economics works, how money influences everything around us, and our different views on that. We don't have to get into it. I actually don't want to get into it right now. But that just brings me back to that conversation of how money rules the world. Cream gets the money, dollar bills, y'all. Like there's 6 degrees of separation from money. I mean, I think I spoke on the podcast about that earlier. But you can always translate everything back to money from one form or another with conflict or decisions.
Yeah. You definitely can. Like that's the whole. I mean, I feel like that's the whole point of a country. Like, how do you like? Essentially, money is like we made money up, right? So like, at the in basic form, it's just trading things. Like I have something of value to you, you have something of value to me. How do we make this exchange work so we're both like better off, right? And so that's the basic form of it. It started with barter and trade, and then it grew to points where we just wanted a systematic way of acknowledging value for certain items or certain services, and then we came up the dollar, but the dollar is backed by gold, which is like it's shiny, it's malleable, so it has naturally a lot of value to a lot of people, and it's rare. It's not that common. So like we said, okay, we can print this paper and have it backed by the gold, so we know how much terms in gold that we are exchanging for whatever good or service. And so, yeah, everything is backed by money, but it's essentially how we create governments, is how we create our economies, is how we create a better life for everybody. If you know how to manage it efficiently and make it work for the betterment of everybody. So,
one thing I want to bring up, did y'all know that the U.S. has a national coin shortage or something like that? When I was going to the stores, there's a national coin shortage. I don't know the specifics of it. I just seen it because every time you go to a cab register or something, they're like, you need exact change or use your card. Like, you can't get change pretty much.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I don't know if that's COVID-19 related or anything like that.
Some parts is because of COVID-19.
Why is that, if you know?
Well, I don't know. Okay. But as a guess, actually, I think that, like, I don't know. It could be because they're afraid of, because they're afraid of, passing the virus.
Okay.
It's always possible, but it's highly unlikely. But that's one of the conclusions that I came up with. Let me look it up.
Coin shortage. So basically, with that, so like it's the same thing as like a depression, right? So like if you just look at the law of supply and demand, right? So like we're having a coin shortage because there's not many people like using them. Like what happened with COVID, there's a depression or a slight depression. And so people were trying to hold on to their coins, like quote unquote, right? So a lot of people aren't willing to go out and spend. So that's why it's like affecting everything else, causing a shortage.
The impact of COVID-19 has resulted in disruption of the supply channels of circulating pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters that Americans and business use in their day-to-day transactions.
Yeah.
But that doesn't tell us why it's affecting it. That just shows us how it's affecting it and what's being affected by what.
I mean, yeah, that essentially does, because like they're saying the reason there's a shortage in coins is because there's low circulation, right? Like there's less and less people like exchanging coins, right?
So basically,
So,
like for example, there's less people going out to stores and stuff and buying things, and usually we would have money in dollars and stuff like that. But since a lot of people are staying home, for example, then they have no need to use dollar bills and stuff like that. They can always use their card, their money in the bank account.
Oh, so in this scenario, coins is really just currency, just money in general, not just like that. I'm thinking it's actual like quarters, dimes, and nickels, like you said.
mm-mm.
Oh, so just okay. Well, that makes sense then.
For example, I mean, my fault, Amanda, but I know our friend Larry, he's saying that Alabama is still closed. Is that the same for y'all in Florida too, because of that Miami incident?
We never closed.
Yeah, Miami, Florida, and Georgia, bro.
You see the NBA's here, so I mean, did we really close? Miami happened. Spring break happened. We were still open, so it didn't matter. Our governor, in my opinion, didn't make the right decision. But it's neither here nor there. It is what it is at this point.
That's crazy. But no, you guys were talking about coins. And I remember something my AP US history teacher told me. He said, like, you know how people keep the big coin jars?
And I do. I have them.
Yeah, I have one right now.
And have a lot of money in there. He said, with that, you guys are actually causing inflation because people think that money is lost. They're out of the circulation till they make more. And that's increasing the US dollar. Is that I'm assuming that's true because they're making more money and producing it, so it's inflating the dollar.
Wait, Amanda, you said if there's not enough circulation going out there, then it's inflating the US dollar?
No, so like you know how people keep loads and loads of change that they have.
Right.
So it's not in circulation. So they might think that money is lost or just it's not in the circulation, so they don't think it's really there anymore. So they make more money to put into the market. And with that, it's adding more currency that's being allowed. So then it inflates the market. That's what
exactly.
So like people that keep, I guess if people still do this, keep cash in their sofas and stuff. I guess that's not being used to the economy. It's just been sitting there. Like if you put it in the bank, the bank is gonna use that money to loan out to other people, even though you can't really take it out right there.
So everyone spend your money.
I'm keeping my coin jar. I'm keeping my coin jar. We're gonna get to $100 in this coins.
But that's another thing that crossed my mind when they were giving everyone stimulus checks. I was on my thought. I was like, that's gonna inflate the market, or at least they're gonna inflate certain things because people are just gonna spend. Like the price of groceries went up like tenfold, so they're just inflating.
That's what Ikenna spit. That's what Ikenna told me.
Let's talk about it.
Inflation. This turns old inflation talk.
Or
that's when you put that little sell in the Forex market.
But no, another thing I thought, so when they talk about African Americans getting their reparations, my thought was they're going to inflate the Black community.
But the thing about that is
they're going to take that money away.
But the thing about that is, I'm totally for reparations, but not in the form that people are thinking about right now. So, of course, we've heard about people saying, "I want at least $250,000 or something like that for my ancestors, back taxes, pretty much." But maybe I forget what podcast it was or what video I was listening to. I'll try to find it and put it in the description below. But one person said maybe there should be reparations, but in the form of like a tax cut for Black people. You're not inflating the country. You're not putting more money into it. You're just keeping more money into the pockets of the African American community. I mean, I think that's a good solution.
Mm-hmm.
Let's really talk about it. So, like, okay, the thing with government policy and monetary policy, right? Like there's no such thing as a solution, right? We gotta
it's a trade-off.
Only trade-offs. Like, what we do this, what are we affecting, or vice versa, right? So, like, first of all, let's talk about the stimulus checks, right? So that was a whole big problem at the beginning of like coronavirus around like February, March, right? Of how do we, first of all, the reason we even got to the point of giving out stimulus checks is we didn't essentially handle the coronavirus that seriously in the beginning stages.
That's a whole different conversation right there, bro.
A whole different conversation.
They definitely dropped the ball with that one.
They dropped the whole world.
Bro.
It was more than the ball. They dropped everything.
It's got to the point where now we have a lot of people losing their jobs, because coronavirus is actually serious. People out here dying. So how do we keep this economy stable and not like end up in a huge recession from our own like mistakes, right? And so the whole idea was stimulus checks, and that's when we got into like politics and how like there are two sides of the stimulus check story, right? On one side, the right side, like Republicans are saying, we don't want stimulus checks. We need to keep the economy open. We shouldn't close down because we're gonna cause a recession. On the other side, they're saying we need stimulus checks because people are out here dying, losing their jobs for something that they didn't even cause, that they didn't even foresee coming. So, but the thing is with stimulus checks, literally what a stimulus check is in its most basic form is we're printing money to give to the citizens, right? The government is essentially printing out funds like $1,000 around that. It was like a $1 trillion package.
Yeah.
Where did the $1 trillion come from? Right? That's where that comes from.
Out of thin air. Like literally. Like
out of thin air.
Like why would you do that? That didn't make no sense.
That's the mindset, right? They're trying to figure out how do we keep the economy stable. And it's funny because this happens every time there's like a crisis, right? Every time we're about to face an economic depression, the government's choice is to print money, lower inflation rates, because that's going to cause economic growth, right? That's the basic mindset. But the whole premise is that because we printed out stimulus checks, we're going to inflate the dollar because there's essentially more money circulating in the economy. More people have more money because we just gave it to them, right? And what happens with more money is we cause inflation. And another part of the story that's actually very important to it is before we even got to this coronavirus epidemic, right? Or pandemic. When Donald Trump got elected as president, we were literally on the tail end of that 2008 recession, right? We're coming out of that. And so Donald Trump inherited the economy, and he was basically going on boasting around saying, oh, look at the economy, it's horrible under Barack Obama. Look, all this, we're trying to, like, our dollar is losing to Mexico, our dollar is losing to Great Britain, our dollar is losing to the European euro. We need to do something about it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it great again. That was his whole mantra. That was his whole spill, right? And so because we were off the backs of that 2008 recession, and mind you, every time we have an economic depression, the increase of our dollar always comes. It's inevitable. Every time there's a depression, our dollar is going to come out way better. And so because he was on the tail end of that, he inherited that whole uptrend of our dollar, right? And so, and also he was implementing a lot of tax cuts to wealthy to help stimulate that growth and help continue it into the future. But essentially, it's not all that great because what happens every time there's inflation, right? What happens when you fill up a bubble to a point of no return?
It pops.
It's gonna pop. So essentially, he inflated the dollar so much, kept the currency going up for the last 4 years, And basically that was his whole claim to fame. Like, look what I did to the economy. Our economy is growing and stable, it's booming. Look what I did. I made America great again. And that's comes a part of his ego and his emotions of being like a business salesperson and saying, I know how to grow economies, I know how to make money, I know how to fix the economy, look what I did. But it was off two things. One, we're coming off the backs of the recession in 2008, and the economy was already semi-stable when he got president. All he did was ride that trend and increase it a whole bunch more. And right, so like when he implemented that 20% tax cut to the 1% of the economy, and on top of that, now we're getting to the point of the coronavirus epidemic or pandemic, whatever you want to call it. So a lot of people are losing their jobs, the dollar is crashing. What do we do, right? We need to figure out a way to keep people from freaking out. But because that's essentially what happens every time like we have a economic depression or recession or inflation, right? People freak out. But the thing is, bad news weighs way heavier than good news, right? When there's good news in the market, things just are normal. But when there's bad news, everybody freaks out and everybody's in a panic and everybody's very, very emotional. And so basically he was trying to respond to that influx of emotions and craze going on in the market. So he said, and a lot of, also along with getting pressure from a lot of other countries, like implementing stimulus checks, he's basically saying, okay, we're going to send out $1 trillion package to people of a certain group of people to either get 1,200 or 2,400 for a family unit, right? To be able to give people money, print out government money, give it to our citizens so they don't starve in the streets and they have something to keep them holding. But if you really think about it, like how much does $1,000 really go? How long does that last, right? Doesn't really do much. And on top of that,
that's rent for somebody.
Yeah, it's rent. But then we've been in this pandemic for 7 months now. Almost, I think it's 8 now. Like $1,000 is not really going far. And so what that did, like he print out the checks, and I don't know if you guys know, but there's a whole like thing where like a whole bunch of people that received stimulus checks were dead. Like they're deceased and their census didn't file. So like we just wasted a whole bunch of money. So now what we caused further inflation of the dollar. And so the whole point of the question of should we give out stimulus checks or should we not? That's why it was taking so long. They didn't want to inflate the dollar any more than we already were. Because mind you, at the beginning of 2020, we were already we were hitting record numbers in our stock market price. Our stock prices were up, the dollar was up, the dollar index is up. So basically, any more inflation, at an increasing rate, the faster money increases, the faster it's going to crash. You need to keep it stable and consistent. So basically, what the stimulus checks did is after that crash, we had a huge rally in the dollar. So now we're making it way more susceptible for a crash later down the years, probably next year. That's another thing that we need to work out. But that was the whole debate on it. Is we didn't know, or government officials didn't know how this would affect us in the long run. They were really just trying to figure out the short term because people were dying, and that's also a serious issue. And another issue of why a lot of Republicans are trying to keep open the businesses is because they're saying that I know this pandemic is serious and people are dying, right? But let's look at the data that we're receiving. 5% of people in the world contract coronavirus, right? I think it's less than 2% of people die from coronavirus. And the people that are dying are elderly. They were
already terminally ill.
Yeah, literally on that kind of scale. So they're saying, okay, we understand this virus is serious, but we cannot shut down the economy, right? If we shut down the economy, we're going to have way worse situations on our hands that are just stacking up. So how do we figure out a way to essentially live with this? Like that's what we're doing. But people's egos get into the play and say, oh, we can't shut down the economy, but because we don't care about people's feelings or people dying or not, and they're just worried about the money. Some people were just worried about the money, but other people were looking at it very practically, saying that we need a way to live with this. We can't just just stop everything, put everything on hold, because that's not an efficient solution or an efficient trade-off. And so other people on the left are saying that we need to handle this now because people are dying. We need to take care of a community, which is also fair to say. So that's my 2 cents.
So let me ask you a question about your analogy about the balloon or bubble. So you said how would the U.S. dollar crash is what I'm trying to ask.
So what happened is, the government policy to implement stimulus checks to U.S. citizens, is literally saying, we will give you money to help you weather the storm of the coronavirus. If you don't have a job, if you're not making a certain amount of money as income, we will help you out, right? We will we will literally give you $1,000, $1,200 to $2,400 to help you, get through the coronavirus for, a month or two, depending on whatever. But we don't know how long this coronavirus is going to last. So what that does is the amount of money that's already circulating within the U.S. economy, it increases that. So when there's more money in the flow of circulation, that means there's more people buying and selling. When more people are buying and selling, they're going to bid up the prices of whatever they're buying and selling. And if you look at the aggregate, that's just the stock market. That's just the U.S. dollar. More people are buying, so that means more people are trying to get a better price. And since one person buys at this high, so like say if I'm buying, let's talk about what can we sell? iPhones, whatever. If I'm selling an iPhone, right, and I see a lot of people willing to pay like $1,200 for an iPhone, I'm going to set my iPhone at $1,200, right, to meet that bid level. So more and more people coming into the market, right, because more and more people have money to spend. So more and more people are buying that iPhone. So there's more demand for my iPhone. So if there's more demand for my iPhone, there's going to be less supply. So if there's less supply, that means I have to raise my prices because people are bidding on that price. They're the ones bidding the price up. So when they're bidding the price up, I have to raise my prices to meet that demand. And so when I raise my prices, that inflates the dollar, or that inflates the price of whatever I'm buying. And in this case, it's the price of the US dollar, the price of the stock market. It's increasing the value, and it's increasing it at a sharp rate. And the sharper the increase, so what happens, you just look at it psychologically, right? When there's a sharp increase in price, people are going to look at it like, wow, that's not a good deal anymore. So I'm not going to buy it. I'm going to hold my money. And more and more people are going to do this, like a chain reaction. And when that happens, the price comes down, and it's going to come down very sharply, which causes an economic depression.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. So that you basically explain it to like anyone who's like a rookie at like financial institution. Yeah, Amanda?
Oh no, I'm saying I'm a rookie.
Oh, so
I just spend money.
that basically put into normal perspectives, and that gives a lot of people like what would happen if basically if we drop from like economic depression. So what you're telling us is it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, literally, it's going to happen. So you better prepare, essentially.
So
we're gonna oh, go ahead, my bad.
I was just gonna say, so as someone who's very interested in finance, what are some tips or what are some things that you can look at in the stock market, in society, and anything to know that the market or the levels are going to tank and when they're thriving?
So it's essentially, you don't even have to look at the stock market, really. You can just look at your local communities, right? You can, if you're really keen, you can see, like say you go to the grocery store often, right? Prices for bananas are like $1 or whatever. And then next week you see prices for bananas are like $2. You're like, whoa, the prices went up. And then that's literally just the same thing, but on a massive scale, right? Prices just gradually increase because more and more people are coming and buying things up and bidding up the price of that item or that product. So a lot of people, like for a tip you can to see is just, just start being more aware of like your surroundings, right? Like being more aware of prices and how much you're paying for things, and like seeing how like prices are in fact impacted by certain economic or government factors, or just like environmental factors. Like it's really hot outside, so we're not going to be selling a lot of ice cream, or we're going to be selling a lot of ice cream or whatnot. It's really cold, so we're going to be selling a lot of coffee. Like certain things, like a lot of like the market. Essentially, the market is people, right? It's nothing but people giving and taking money. So whatever affects people is going to affect the market, and that's how you can really look at it. You can just see how things are in your community are affecting your community, and then you can just like figure out a way to like learn how to anticipate when news comes out, how it's going to affect your community or your state or your government or your country, and just like spread out like that. And then with the stock market, you really want to get into the stock market, you just look at the NASDAQ, Dow Jones, or the S&P 500. Basically, those are the Dow Jones is basically government bonds, right? So if you were to invest in government bonds, those are very stable, and they don't necessarily change over time. This S&P 500 is basically the top 500 companies in the United States of America. So if you wanted to look at an overall view of the stock market, S&P 500 is what you usually look at. And the NASDAQ is basically all the top tech companies in the world. And tech is usually crushing the market. Like they barely have any like economic depressions because, technology always advances us further. So like the S&P 500 is literally just looking at prices of like an aggregate of prices of about the top 500 companies in the U.S. and seeing how economic, government, or environmental policies or situations affect that market. And you can see, if you look at like the monthly time frames or whatnot, you can see how things have been going on a steady trend and have certain drops and then just continue to get better over time.
So in comparison to other countries, right? Who is like, I won't say like who is the richest because you can determine that, but I don't like that word. So because I know the coronavirus is not, of course, not just happening in the United States and it's happening everywhere. Mm-hmm. But my question is, at this point in time, because I know other countries are reacting different to the coronavirus, what would you say is like, have you been paying attention to other countries besides us?
Yeah, a little bit here and there. Like I do my research very generally on a lot of things, so I know a little about a lot of things.
So before the coronavirus, right? Who was technically the wealthiest country, if you know?
I mean, okay, wealthy and country. There's a lot of factors that affect it, right? So if we look at like China versus the U.S., or not even China versus the U.S., let's look at Italy, right? The Great Britain versus the United States of America, right? Great Britain. The United States of America is literally 3 times the size of Great Britain. We can just look at a map and see that, right? But the British pound is more valuable compared to the U.S. dollar, right? Now you ask yourself, why is that? We have more people. We have like a growing economy. The the pound also has an extremely stable economy, and they've been around longer than us. But I mean, the economy's kind of like falling apart right now because of Brexit, but that's a whole different story. But it's literally, my point is saying that everything is variable. Like everything plays a factor. Everything is like you really can't say that's why I'm saying like you just look at things like indifferently and just look at the data and what they show you, because from there you can make whatever inference that you want. But the data is objective. Everybody has access to it. So there's no point in saying like which country's the richest, because that didn't really do anything for you.
Okay, that makes sense. Y'all got anything to add?
Nah, I mean, Ikenna was just educating the people, so appreciate it.
Amanda?
It's very new because I typically don't come by very well-versed finance people. So just to learn, because I typically like to learn new things from different people. So just hearing you passionate and just you talking about just banking in general, which I'm a biology major, so all I know is taking the credit chip and to know how much money I have. So
it's funny, I'm not even a finance person. Like my thing is computer science. Like I love computers, I love data. Like,
we are in agreement.
Really, like everything that's data driven is like when you have a lot of data, if you're able to collect a lot of data, you're able to make better decisions, right? And that's why like there's a whole realm of like big data and just artificial intelligence, computer science. Like you're literally just collecting information from a whole bunch of sources, reliable information, and you're aggregating it and putting it into like a certain metric to be able to learn from that metric and make your decisions. Like I'm not even saying anything I'm saying is right. All I'm saying is like, this is what I see and this is what I think. You can see the same thing and you can think something completely different, but we're both seeing the same thing and we can both make a smart decision off what we see. So like, and with finance, it's so simple because you can just run that data through a computer and figure out what you need to figure out.
Yeah, point of information, Ikenna is not like a finance specialist or anything like that. He's just a normal person like anyone else. He just takes finance to heart and really like cares about it and influences it with economics and politics.
But I feel like, each one of us have even though we're on biology or engineering, another engineer, but I feel like we all have our passions or our side hobbies, what we know a lot of. So my question is, for Ikenna, what got you into like the whole finance and banking systems?
Man, I love this question.
This turned into a whole interview, bro. It turned into a whole.
What got me into this, right? So mind you, right? We're all college students, so that's already one. We don't have that much money, right? And so I was like, this is around like sophomore going into junior year. I'm like, yo, like, what am I about to do? Like, I have no money and I can't work because I'm a full-time student. And even if I were to try and like squeeze out like some time for a job or whatnot, I'd be getting paid like $7, especially in Virginia. Like it doesn't work out for me. And I'm like, I know. And then from a kid, like I knew like, bro, like there's people out here making buku amounts of money. And it's like, how are they doing that? And there's people out here suffering. And I was always the type of person I was like, bro, there's no reason like that they can do it and I can't. Like, what are they doing differently that I just don't know? Because essentially the only difference between me and them is that they know something that I don't know. So like, I was like, okay, I need to figure out what they know. So I hopped on Google and started figuring out like why the rich were the rich, how money worked, how things circulated. I started getting into Forex and learning the different countries and their currencies and how they affected each other. I started learning about how the economy affects that. I started learning how people's psychology started affecting like money, and literally just learning more and more about money. It just kept opening my eyes more and more. And it invited me to jump down the rabbit hole of learning about everything. Because like when you learn money, essentially you're just learning the world. Like you're learning yourself and you're learning how you affect everything and how everything affects you. It's like everything is intertangled into one. And it's like a spiritual awakening kind of. Like you just figure out everything about everything. And you don't figure out, you learn more about everything, and it helps you make better decisions. Like money, like the study of economics is literally just the study of people's decisions. It had nothing to do with money. Like money, like I said, we made it up. So like when you learn about people's decisions and why they make certain decisions, it helps you make better decisions, and it helps you be able to manage your capital better and grow your wealth. And then that was also prominent. I was trying to get to I started like hearing about like generational wealth and stuff, and that's also very serious. And the thing is, like people, it's like a buzzword though. Like a lot of people, when they hear generational wealth, they're like, yeah, I want that for my kids and my family and whatnot, but they don't know how it works, how to get it, and how much effort it really takes. You know, because like generational wealth, you're talking about like hundreds of years of like millions of dollars within your family. Like that's not an easy task, but people just talk about it like it's just something. And then there are people out here who really have that. So I started studying those people. I started studying people like Warren Buffett. I started studying people like Mansa Musa. I started studying people far back in history who have done this, right? Like mind you, how much people hate him. I started studying Donald Trump. Like his family has generational wealth. I wanted to know how they did that. Like, so I can do that for my family and my community. Like I don't care about people and their decisions, because everybody's human. Everybody's gonna make decisions based on their intention and whatnot. But like, if you have money and that money is making you better off, like better off living wise, like I want to know how you do that so I can do that for myself. So I just literally just jumped head first into that rabbit hole, buying literally every book I had or I could get my hands on, reading every article, every document, every research paper, and literally just locking myself away and figuring out, watching every Udemy class. You feel me?
Udemy.
And just literally figuring out how to like get that for myself. And
Ikenna he went to the school of YouTube University.
Yes.
YouTube University, Google University. Bro.
Ikenna, if you didn't hate school so much, you would be a perfect candidate for like a fintech type of PhD program. If you didn't hate school so much.
Bro. And also another part of that I was leading up to that, I forgot. So, and this is actually learned recently, right? So I started looking at like, why the hell am I paying all this money, right? And I don't even know what I want to do. And then partly it's my fault, but at the same time, it was like, bro, like
you can't monetize this episode. Okay.
Bro, I was like,
you dropped the F word right on cue. Like, gee.
My bad.
So we're the luck. That's what he said.
Oh, it was luck. It was an L. Okay, what the luck? All right, I got you.
I was like, why am I paying all this money and I don't have a clue of like my direction in life? Like, shouldn't y'all be helping me? Like this, like my advisors and all that. Like, this is your job. Like, you're supposed to help me figure out what I need to do.
That's a whole. That's a whole nother conversation for another episode on another podcast.
Right, and I'm like, okay. I started learning like tuition prices are increasing, right? And the thing is about that, like tuition prices are increasing, but the value you're getting from colleges is not increasing like correspondingly, right? Like it's actually like inverse, right? A lot of the value of a degree is decreasing, but the tuition prices are increasing. And that brings us back into like the government policies and the Federal Reserve and the interest rates, right? So like schools are getting incentives to increase their tuition prices because the government is incentivizing kids to just take out loans, right? They lowered the interest rates on student loans, so that incentivized students to go and take out student loans for colleges, and that incentivized the colleges to say, okay, well, our tuition price is like $40,000, but the kids aren't paying the $40,000; they're just taking out a government loan for this $40,000. So that means I can increase my tuition to whatever I want because the kid's not going to pay that; they're going to take out a loan to pay it, and the government's going to pay me. But then, as we saw with the housing market, what happens when you inflate the price so much? It's gonna pop, right? So that's what I personally believe is gonna be the next cause of depression: student loans and credit card debt. Because when people get to a certain point when they're getting they were in college for at least 4 years, they came out with a degree, and they're at least $100,000 in debt. And they can't get a job because they have no value to the market. They have no skills that they can apply to any company or career. So what happens? They can't pay off their student loans. So they can't pay off their student loans. They're going to default. When they default, more people default, and it causes fear and emotion in the market, and that causes the depression. And that's literally why I was like, it fueled my fire to learn more and more about how money works because I didn't want to be on that end of the spectrum.
Oh. I want to thank everyone for coming to this episode. I want to thank Ikenna for teaching us finance because that was a great episode and I definitely learned something. I hope y'all learned something too. We're going to give out socials. So, Chris?
Follow me at tallboy_Chris on Instagram and follow our Instagram page at applicable_science.
Amanda?
And follow me on Instagram at Munda55 and my business, AVH Organics.
Black Business Alert. Black Business Alert.
Hey, man, y'all can follow me at It's Just Ikenna, bro. Instagram and Twitter. It's just Ikenna. And yeah, YouTube.
He'll be continue dropping that finance information. So if you follow him, you may learn something new too. Once again, like, comment, subscribe. If you have any comments that will make us better, please leave it down in the comment section. We'll see you at the next one.